because I think coming into this relationship, and a lot of people, we have the idea that our partner is supposed to fulfill us. And a lot of times we think that we're not compatible because we're looking for something from that person that really in truth should be coming from.
Pick back up on this because it seems like we have so much to talk about.
Traditionally untraditional, take 3.
So welcome to Traditionally Untraditional. This is our podcast that we're starting where we tackle some of the hardest relationship questions you can handle. This is our first official podcast. We have other stuff out, but we just wanted to make sure that our recordings were correct. We wanted to make sure that we was correct. And so for those of us who follow us on TikTok, now you'll be able to follow us on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and probably some of everything you can think of. Just check out our website, check out the links below. But yeah, today we're going to talk about compatibility, finding love, understanding love, sustaining love. Compatibility is one of the main things that people kind of talk about, right? Compatibility, or another word that we use when we talk about compatibility a lot of times is my type. What's my type, right? With each episode, we're going to have some books that we're going to provide to you. These are books that we've read throughout our relationship, throughout our marriage. Nobody really knows how to do this relationship thing, so it's always important to read as much as you can. It don't necessarily mean that we agree with everything that's in the book, but I do think that there are important nuggets in all of the books that we've read, something that we've kind of taken away, or at least made us think about it.
I agree.
Yeah. So the books that we have today, that just talking about, the first book is oldie but goodie. It's The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. A lot of us have probably heard about the 5 love languages in one way, form, or another. It's probably one of the ones that I hear the most. When people start getting into relationships, they start talking about the 5 love languages. And for those of us who have never heard of the 5 love languages, there's essentially, the idea is basically that everybody has a way to be loved. And in this book, Gary Chapman kind of outlines 5 distinct ways to be loved. One is words of affirmations, meaning verbal appreciation, compliments, encouragement, makes the person feel loved. The other one is acts of service. This demonstrating love through helpful actions like doing chores or running errands. Receiving gifts, that's pretty self-explanatory. Buying gifts, quality time, and every man's personal favorite, physical touch. And we tend to look at these as ways to love. Another book that we're going to talk about is not necessarily about relationships, but he has a portion in there about relationships, and I think that it's really about life. And that book is The Road Less Traveled. And that's by, what's his name?
M. Scott Peck.
M. Scott Peck. One of the things that I find very fascinating about this book is he talks a lot about, obviously the title is A Road Less Traveled, and so he talks a lot about intentionality, choosing. And one of the aspects he talks about in his book is that love is an active choice, not just a feeling. Right? We have to be intentional about love. So he talks about love through discipline versus love through infatuation, and we'll touch on some of those topics. And then lastly, this is a book, probably a man's favorite. It's called The Way of the Superior Man by David Dita. Everybody, I would recommend reading this book, especially young men, especially men in general. But the focus on this is really masculinity and femininity and how they interact with each other, because that goes into compatibility. And so these are just 3 aspects. We'll pull other things as well, but those are the 3 books that we recommend today. And we're going to get into our discussion. So what's our first question?
First question. Is love about finding the right person or becoming the right person?
Okay, I'll let you take that. What you think?
I would say that it is a combination of both, but in an order. I would say that the first thing is becoming the right person. And after you get to the point of becoming the right person, finding the right person. And the reason why I say that is because we go through stages in life, and you may be at a stage of life, and at that stage, you think that that person is the right person. But then as you grow, mature, go through some things, find yourself, you'll realize that person was not the person that was to grow and mature with you. And so that's why I say it's important that you have to work on being the right person. The right person meaning yourself, whatever traumas that you have to deal with, and not just trauma, maturity, growth. Like, you have to be, a lot of times we're quick to think about what we want in a spouse, but we don't reflect the mirror and say, am I spouse material? Am I long term relationship material? So, part of being the right person is not just working through your trauma if you have any, but it's also, am I the equivalent of spousal or long term commitment material that I'm looking for? Would I be the complement to what I'm looking for? So that's why I say, and when you start to do that, you'll realize, somebody, when I was before I got married, had told me to write a list of 10 things that I was looking for in a spouse. 10 things that I was also, that I needed to work on for myself, and 10 things that made me happy. As I was growing and maturing and doing a lot of self development and really making myself the right person, after a couple of years, that initial list that I wrote of the 10 things that I was looking for in a spouse, that list changed. Because as I started to learn more of myself, what I needed, what I didn't need in another person, that list changed. So that's why I would answer that and say, you got to become the right person so that you can look out for or choose or attract to you the right person. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. I think that plays right into what the book The Road Less Traveled. Because one of the things he says is that love requires self discipline, commitment, personal development, and avoiding responsibility or emotional labor weakens the relationship. And a lot of times, you mentioned like becoming the right person. A lot of times, we are not the people that we think we are. We just not, we're able to deal with our flaws and we think that they're normal. And part of the relationship part is you coming together with another person, and that person is now looking at your flaws like, I don't know about this. It's kind of like a smell. Like a lot of times, like you go into somebody's house and they have a smell, good or bad, right? You just know people have a smell, and so you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this smells like this person, but that person, they can't smell it because they're used to it, and so we sometimes develop bad habits, and then we get into this relationship, and now we're struggling with this person, and we're just like, oh, we're just not compatible. It's like, and this is why you end up in relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship, and people will keep saying, people are always looking for the right person, and people never take the time to assess, is it something with me that is wrong? Is it something that I'm doing that's wrong in this relationship? And we don't like to say that. We like to think that we're perfect. We like to think that the people that we broke up with and or broke up with us were wrong, were narcissists, were manipulators, were, there's so many different words. But a lot of times it is. You have to become that person, you know.
I want to highlight in The Road Less Traveled, and how it relates to compatibility. Some of the things that were mentioned in that book were being intentional with choosing the right partner, facing challenges together, and understanding love as work. I think that when you and I read that book, we read it separately. when he got to the part about what love is, I think that it was an aha moment for both you and I, because I think coming into this relationship, and a lot of people, we have the idea that our partner is supposed to fulfill us. And a lot of times we think that we're not compatible because we're looking for something from that person that really in truth should be coming from within self. And so it really had us change our idea of, well, what love is. And also with compatibility, understanding that facing challenges together and learning how to love each other through that is the work.
Yeah.
It's something that you're intentionally striving to do together. That's why I think that, or that part, I think a lot of us, when we go through trials, we fall apart, and we think it's because we're not compatible. But we did not have the idea that we're going to work through this together. We're discovering ourselves and we're discovering each other, because as the relationship goes on, it is a process of discovery. But you have to be intentional, you and your partner, to have the idea that whatever comes up, we're going to work through this together. And that's how love grows.
Yeah.
That's how compatibility grows.
Yeah. Right when we read this book, there was a clip from Will Smith. And I know I hate to bring up Will Smith in the midst of the Jada, like, well, you bringing Will Smith relationship advice? But it's whatever. But he was talking about Jada, and Jada at that time, this is before the entanglement. This is before we knew about August Alsina and all this other stuff. But he was talking about how Jada was always unhappy. And he eventually said to her, I can't be your happiness. You have to go find that for yourself. And I think that for me, that was an aha moment, because regardless of how great your parents were, how great your childhood was, I think all of us become adults and we have like this something that needs to be fulfilled, right? We have something, whether it's love, whether it's passion. There's something in us that's like, I have something and I need somebody to fill it up. And then we get with this person or people and we're expecting them to fill it for. We fill our cup. And sometimes it happens. This is a common issue with love bombing, because people who love bomb, they come in and they're filling your cup. They are, you're amazing, you're beautiful, I love you, I can't live without you. But it's not sustainable. That's why it's called love bombing, because after the duration, 6 months, maybe less, maybe a year, right? It kind of falls apart. And the person's like, oh, they told me they couldn't breathe without me. It's like, do you really think that? And so we find these people to kind of fill us. But the truth is, you should be filling yourself.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
No one else can fulfill you over time. It's not sustainable. We're all autonomous beings that have emotions and needs. Realistically, I cannot fill your cup forever.
Yeah.
That has to come from within.
Yeah.
Right? But that's yes, I do remember that video actually coming out, because you had sent me that video when we were reading this book, and it was like putting the two together. It's like, this is what he was talking about in The Road Less Traveled, is love comes from within.
Yeah. And I think that's some of my issue is not the word, but this is where I find flaw in the book, The 5 Love Languages.
Okay.
Because people just take that and they go, see, I'm words of affirmation. I need you to tell me every day how beautiful and how amazing I am. And it's like, and if you're not doing that, you're not speaking my love language. And we take this and we become absolute across each one, right? Across, because let's words of affirmation may be like, well, if you don't want to tell your partner they're amazing, what type of partner are you? Okay, great. Well, let's talk about gifts, right? It's like, when it comes to gifts, and people will say, well, I don't need anything expensive. It's just the thought that counts. But it's not true. Typically, when people are consider themselves gifts of service, they want things. They cherish things like, birthdays and anniversaries, and they're expecting something grand. Okay. And you have to continue to provide. If you gave a purse this year, you got to give something bigger next year. And it becomes more and more. That's for men. And so men start saying, no, she want to, I'm just making something up. She want a Gucci purse. Now she want a flight to Paris. Now she want this, right? But for women, it becomes physical touch. That man comes, my love language is physical touch, and you ain't been touching me. And we know it's not the point of this podcast, but we know sex can be a touchy issue when it comes to relationships because, a man feel like a man has needs, and this is my love language. But physical touch sometimes, women talk about this all the time, like, oh, I'm touched out. And whether or not we as men understand it or agree with it, it's still real. And so now you're requiring something of a person, and they may not be able to give you to the extent. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be giving your partner physical touch. That's not what I'm saying. But everybody's cup is a different size. Mm-hmm. And maybe you got a 32-ounce cup, mm-hmm. and I only got 8 ounces to give. Right? And so also that's not saying we should be outsourcing physical touch. But what it's saying is that we have to take a look inside of ourselves to really try to figure out if I'm unhappy, as Will Smith told Jada, why? And come to the realization that it's probably not the responsibility of our partner to always absolutely fill that cup.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Getting back to compatibility, something that we haven't addressed is, and so are you saying then that you could take any two people and put them together and it should be able to work out if they're intentional about it?
That's a great question. So I think yes and no.
Okay, explain.
The reason why I say yes is because people have arranged marriages that worked. Mm-hmm. You're theoretically just taking two people, putting them together, right? And they can figure it out. And I know that some arranged marriages are terrible, but some arranged marriages work. And the studies show that arranged marriages don't have a higher divorce rate than regular marriages. Mm-hmm. So whether we're choosing or somebody choosing for us, sometimes the result is the same. So I do think that intentionality matters more than we think it does. But by that same measure, I do think that if anything, the hindrance will be cultural. Okay. I think that culture has a huge impact on relationships. And sometimes that can be too large of a hurdle to get over. So I don't believe that any two people per se, but I do believe that with intention, probably 70% of people with intention can probably be together.
So let's focus on what you said about cultural. The thought I had with that is culture doesn't necessarily mean different races.
Okay.
Culture could be within the same race and nationality. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Okay.
So I guess the point that I'm making is when you said culture, the first thing I thought about was family culture.
Yeah.
When it comes to compatibility. And what I mean by that is, let's say that I was raised in a traditional two-parent family, and let's say both of my parents worked. My mother did work outside the home. She did most of the cooking, though, in the home. I had a very traditional family. So would I be compatible with, let's say, a man who came from a two-parent family, a one-parent family, and let's say there was some trauma in that, right? Let's say that the father might have been absent, or maybe the father was abusive to the mother. Maybe add in that the mother was maybe suffering from alcoholism or something like that. Those are two totally different upbringings and culture.
So I think that in those cases, what I would say is, where is that person now?
Okay.
Because it goes back to the intention thing. Intention is important. Mm-hmm. I could have came from that background. Mm-hmm. But if my intention is to be a married man, and I think a lot of people, not just men, but I think a lot of people are in that situation. I think a lot of people want and are trying to be intentional about a family, but probably didn't come from the best situation. Mm-hmm. Whether it's single parent, whether it's trauma, whether it's abuse. I think that the intention, I think where we fall sometimes is you meet that person and they don't see anything wrong with their behavior. So this goes back to what I was saying before about it's like they don't see nothing wrong with it. They don't see anything. And so now you're trying to convince them, if you will, to change their ways. That's not compatible. But if you meet me and I'm like, you know what, my father wasn't in my life, you know, my mother wasn't, whatever the case may be, but I'm trying to be intentional about this. I think that can work. So even with that, it's about intention still plays a role in it. Mm-hmm. We just have to be better. A lot of times, I don't think that we know our intention. We just be out here. We just be, and I think this goes back to The Road Less Traveled, where he talks about intention with dating. Mm-hmm. You started this off by saying you had a list. Mm-hmm. We ain't got no list. A lot of us are out here just, you know, you meet a person, they look good, you know, you vibe a little bit, you know, maybe the chemistry is there, and these are things that are temporary. Chemistry is temporary. Mm-hmm. Many people don't want to. No, it's not. But I'm not saying that you don't have married couples and yada yada yada, but the chemistry that we're talking about a lot of times is just infatuation. It's excitement in the moment. Okay. But it's not necessarily that chemistry can lie to you. Mm-hmm. You know, that chemistry can, because. And some people are good, going back to the love bombing thing, some people are just good at creating chemistry. Okay. You know? But
you're saying that the intentional part, let's clarify what you mean by intention. Because a viewer may not understand what you mean by that. Like, I was intentional getting into that relationship. But when you're talking about intention, you're referring to our choices, our behavior. Yeah. Being intentional about how we act, what we do when our partner is around and when our partner is not around. Like, making sure that we're intentional about doing things that are conducive of sustaining a happy long-term relationship. That's what you're referring to as intention, correct?
Right. Sorry if there's a gap in this recording. It's because our audio stopped working for a little bit. We are Mom and Pop's podcast. And this technology is terrible. But if you support, we'll have a whole studio where there will be no interruptions. All right. But I think we were talking about just being intentional. I think to wrap that up, I guess going back to the list, the first thing about being intentional in this relationship is you have to know what you want in life. I think a lot of people don't fully know what they want in life. Okay. And so they don't know what to look for in a partner. Right? They're not, and even if you don't think you know what you want in life, you do know, because you know what you don't want, right? You know that you may have an idea. We talk about this. I'm just giving a cheap example, but men, I want a wife that, you know what I'm saying, can cook and throw down. That's not what you were dating for. When you met that woman, you didn't ask her what meals she can cook. You didn't meet her. And so now you get in this relationship, and now you're just like, man, she don't even cook. If that's what you wanted, you didn't seek that out. And I think
so. Let's pause on that. So what you're saying by intention is, if I hear you correctly, that a lot of times we just enter into relationship with people. We met them, we liked them, we get in this relationship, and now we have expectations. Yeah. But we were not intentional about, should I get in relation with this person based off of expectations.
Right. So going back to the book Road Less Traveled, you know how he said, like, actions, like love is intention, love is action, right? Mm-hmm. I think that it's important to see, because when we think of love, we think of the lovey-dovey, the laid up, the romance, the kiss scene, right? You know, the stuff in the movies. But the truth about married life is it's responsibility. It's taking care of the children. It's taking care of your house. It's making sure the bills are paid. It's making sure things are getting done, right? And then it's also taking care of each other. Mm-hmm. But all of this is work. And I think that you can tell that in the person if you were being intentional. Mm-hmm. Right? Where you're like, oh, this person is so selfish. You knew they were selfish. You knew that they had these tendencies. You knew that they couldn't prioritize. Right. They prioritized themselves. And so now you're just like, he's a narcissist. Okay, I hear you, but you should have known that this person prioritizes themselves. we have on social media like the red flags. These red flags be everywhere. We just ignore them because that person is cute, because that person is attractive, because that person has something that we want, and we ignore that, and then we get into this relationship, and it's like, and we even sometimes we even ignore the people in our life who's telling us that. We got plenty of people who are like, this is not a good person. We just ignore it though, and so that's what I'm saying about the being intentional. It's like you have to know who you are, you have to know what you expect in life, and you got to find that person. And I think that this is not on here per se, but I think in the midst of that, then you have to assess, is what you're attracted to what you want? Because I think a lot of people going to get you what you want. Because a lot of us fall into that category of what we desire, what we want, what we desire versus the idea that we have in our mind. They're two different things. They're two different things, right? And you have to think about that. You have to choose. And I think that, and then once you think about that and once you choose, you're going to have to reconcile that within yourself. And what I mean by that is, this is why you have all of these women, particularly women, men probably feel it too, but it's particularly a conversation amongst women about settling. Oh, I settled, right?
Don't want to settle.
Don't want to settle.
Okay.
Or complaining that they did settle.
Okay.
And I think what happens is women want to be married. They want a family. They want children. And the man that they're attracted to, what's the movie on Netflix? Sex Life.
Oh, yes.
If you haven't checked out that, check out Sex Life. It's a documentary on Netflix. The main character in that movie, she's struggling because she has this husband who's an accountant, and he's providing her a life and like stability. She used to be in New York. He moved there like in Connecticut or something like that. He's doing well for himself. She doesn't have to work. They have this child. But the whole time she's struggling because she still has a past boyfriend in her head. I think his name is like Brad or something like that. Classic bro name. And so she's fantasizing about Brad. But Brad came from that trauma background. Brad wasn't trying to have a family, right? And throughout the TV show, you'll find there's like cut scenes or whatever where her friend is trying to remind her or whatever, like, do you remember how Brad had you? And the cut scene, and she's like on the floor in the bathroom, like a bottle of tequila, crying and shaking, and how could he do this to me? But you fantasizing about that. Meanwhile, your husband has done nothing, but he's a little boring to you. That's not your type. But you went with him because he was the one that was going to provide you with the things you need. And it's like, and so when you are assessing yourself, you got to really assess to be like, this is what I'm attracted to, but this is not good for me. And I have to change my relationship. It's like changing your diet. Right? You went from eating fried foods and Twinkies and donuts. That all tastes amazing. And now you're like, you know what? I'm eating healthy. That apple is not going to taste as good as that donut. But you can't be sad eating apple. You have to accept in your mind that this donut is processed food and not good for me, and it's going to make me overweight and have diabetes. Like, you have to really conceptualize that in order for you to really make that lifestyle change. And the same thing is true of relationships, right? We grow up watching movies, and it's like the bad boy or the bad girl or whatever the case may be. Those are not the people. Great to watch on television, but not great for family.
Let's go back to the settling, because you're right. You do hear women say that more than men as far as settling. And I just saw someone on TikTok, a woman talking about that, saying that, you know, when people tell you that you're going to have to venture outside of your type, it's code word for you're going to have to settle for somebody that's ugly, that you're not attracted to. And I just want to address that and clarify that, because I do hear a lot of women interpret it to mean that way, like somebody ugly, somebody that you wouldn't even be attracted to. That's not what is being said. That's not the point. I think the point being made is sometimes your type or what you think is your type may not be good for you. And that it's like choosing a different flavor of ice cream, right?
Yeah.
It's like the point being made is it's still somebody who is attractive. We're not saying that go out and get somebody that you're not even physically attractive to. We're saying there are other people who are attractive and capable, but you're passing them up because they don't get that fire burning in you. This is a good one. The difference between a fast burn and a slow, steady burn. What people are saying is your type probably is that fast burn, that love bombing, as you saying. What we're saying is you're going to have to look for someone that you still have attraction to. There can be chemistry there, but that's a slower, consistent burn. And a lot of us are addicted to that fast burn.
Yeah. We're addicted to it. Last point on this, compatibility. It's not last point of compatibility. We got this to talk about. But I also want to talk about, I brought up the book, The Way of the Superior Man by David Dita.
Okay.
And I talked about how he focuses on masculinity and femininity. And this is very important to understand the difference. Because I think that no matter what type of relationship you have, straight, gay, or other, there always has to be a masculine and a feminine. Okay? We have lost a lot of that, and this is why you see so much what they call red pill content come up. Because we, in the midst of, and we talked about this before on one of our TikToks, women have historically been abused, been mistreated. And throughout the past, 100 years, you can say 1920s women's suffrage, we've been trying to correct that along with a lot of other things. But the solution isn't for women to be like men. And that's where the feminist movement a lot of times have been taking this. And we're using the feminist movement, but it's not just feminist movement. It's really across some of everything. Music, movies. I don't necessarily think some of it's attached to a movement. It just is what it is, right? And equality does not mean, men and women having equality does not mean that they are the same, right? Men have to be masculine because women are attracted to masculinity, and women have to be feminine because men are attracted to femininity. That's attraction. But then also, in order for them to work together, the yin and the yang, right? This is why I say no matter the relationship, one will always have to be feminine and one will always have to be masculine, right? It doesn't work if two people are feminine and two people are masculine, regardless of, when I say two people are feminine, you can have a man and a woman in a relationship and both exhibiting femininity. You can have a man and a woman in a relationship and both exhibiting masculinity. And this is where these clashes happen. Mm-hmm. Because one person has to assume the role. Mm-hmm. Even in, not that I suggest this, but even if the woman in the relationship is masculine and the man is feminine, that relationship will work more than both of them being the same. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting dynamic across relationships. And I think that we get lost in that. And I think that for men confuse, and I'll speak to men, and I'm not going to speak to women. Mm-hmm. Men confuse masculinity with machoism. Got a phone call. Men confuse masculinity with machoism a lot of times. And so do women. You see that guy in the street, whoop dude. That's just machoism. But bro is unemployed. He's not taking care of his kids. He can't fix nothing around the house. That's just machoism. Mm-hmm. Being able to defend your family, defend yourself is a part of masculinity. Mm-hmm. But if that's all you have, it's machoism. It's absent of the rest, right? And that's how we come off as. It's the same thing with sleeping with a bunch of women. It's like, it ain't masculinity. Because masculinity implies taking care of women, right? Taking care of your family, not just having sex with them, not just sleeping with them, right? But we've confused this over time. And so women have also confused that over time. And then so we then get in this relationship, and even if that man is not feminine, but he's macho, in the dating stage, that's amazing. In the dating stage, right? You see these guys who hold their girl hand tight. Talk to my girl, blah, blah. But they're not doing nothing. You're just looking like, okay, like this guy, he's, man, don't say nothing to me. They're just hyper machoism.
Okay.
But that woman in that relationship, she's unhappy because you talk to her, you're like, well, he can't hold a job, and he don't have this, and he really don't take care of the kids, and but those are all of those things of maintenance and taken care of, because women expect to be to some extent taken care of. And so if that man is not doing those things, he's not masculine. He's just macho. And to the reverse of that, if he's not able to, there was an analogy of men and women in relationships, and it was on TikTok. Some of y'all may have seen it, but the woman said the man is like a flagpole and the woman is like the flag. And she said the man's responsibility, masculinity, is to stand tall regardless of rain, hail, sleet, snow, season. Unmovable, the rock. No matter what, that flagpole is not moving. Is it raining outside? Flagpole is still there. Is snowing outside? The flagpole is still there. Is sunny outside? The flagpole is still there. Is cold? Is winter? Is spring? Is summer? The flagpole is still there.
Is drought?
Drought? The flagpole is still there.
Okay.
Right? The flag on the pole moves. It's up high. It floats within the wind. Right? If somebody passes away, it goes half past. Right? Sometimes the flag is down. Sometimes it's not even there at all. You see a flagpole, no flag at all. Right? This is the relationship between men and women. Right? It's like the man is expected through all of life trials and tribulations to be the rock, to be the direction, to be the steadfast, right?
To be the standard.
To be the standard. There you go. To be the standard of the family, of the relationship. And that's just what it is, right? Where we expect that woman to fly in the wind, to be free, to essentially show the emotions of what may be happening. But as a man, you can't, right? This is why, I often tell young boys, it's like, courage is not the absence of fear. It's action through fear, right? Bear
like
bust in
that.
the room. Okay, I'm scared too. It's a bear. But I need to protect my family, right? That's what courage is. Now, if I run away like, y'all catch yourself, that's a coward, right? So people assume that courage is like I said, absence of fear. Courage is not absence of fear. Courage is action through fear. So,
I want to go back to touch back on the compatibility, but where we were talking about intention, and we can wrap it up with that. Essentially, in the we didn't mention Love and Respect by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. Yeah, that was a good book too. But I just want to bring up, because I think just to drive the point home, when we're talking about intention, and you were saying even if two people come from two different backgrounds, I think the word we missed though was shared values. With that, intention is, I know what I value and what I'm looking for, the quality of life that I'm looking to live, how I want my life to be, right? A great example of that would be myself personally, right? Growing up in a home where two parents that fought like cats and dogs and that argued. That's a value of mine that I didn't want my children to have to witness that. So it was very important to me that I found a spouse who also valued, right, how we handle disagreements, right? We valued not passing that trauma on to our children. So I just wanted to reiterate that when it comes to that dating with intention and compatibility, the very important thing of finding somebody compatible is they share the same value system that you have.
what's our next section about?
Well, we do want to go in order. The reality of love, sex boundaries, and betrayal. Goes into understanding sexual desire and emotional need, boundaries and commitment. Oh, I need to go turn that Go turn that meat off. Pros and cons of relationship expectations. What?
When you're recording in your house, you gotta go turn that dinner off.
We'll cut that out. We have sustaining love. This is number 4. Sustaining love, growth and transformation. Commitment and growth, communication and respect. Pros and cons of long-term love. The thought-provoking conversation with that was, is long-term love about passion or partnership? Can you have both? And then the thought-provoking question of the other one is, can true love survive infidelity, or is it an ultimate deal breaker?
I don't want to touch on the infidelity thing for this one. But what I
Okay.
do want to touch on, though, going back to the compatibility and the sex and going back to the David, the road less traveled, though.
Okay.
Most of us will, I think the issue with sex is like, most of us will not be virgins when we find that person.
We go into that conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
So, the reality of love, sex boundaries, and betrayal.
Yeah. Most of us,
Can we time out so I can go do that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And
All right.
we are back.
The reality of love, sex boundaries, and betrayal.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really talk about the betrayal part. I feel like that's a deeper conversation for another time.
Okay.
But I do think that it's important to understand compatibility when it comes to sex, right? Like you often, one of the things that's on these podcasts a lot of times is like, you know, in the least vulgar way as possible, is like if the sex ain't right, then I'm out. If the sex ain't this, it's this idea of bad sex, right? And it's not being compatible. The truth is, though, I think sex is probably the least quoted reason for divorce.
True. Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like it's the least quoted, and there's a reason why. I'm not getting into body counts, but there is a reason why people with less sexual partners tend to be married longer. And some of the
Is that true for men and women?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And contrary to popular belief, men are not getting it in the way they be saying. I was just reading something talking about the average man in his lifetime. This is all men. For those of us who are saying, I'm lying, this is all men. The average man will only have, I think they said 3 sexual partners in their lifetime.
Okay.
Right? So I think that we overhype that. There are some people that are getting it in. If you wanted those, hey, but for the most part, it's not happening as much as you think. And what they find is that people who have less sexual partners tend to be married longer. And some of it has to do with it has nothing to do with the actual sex. So anybody, all of this talk about like,
we're gonna talk about anatomy
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, all of this talk. We had that thing on TikTok like, it feel different. I can tell. You can't. You stop, please. And on TikTok, when I said that guy, I said, if you have children and you're a man and you've been in that hospital and you've seen a 7.5-pound baby push through that area, please stop with this conversation. Like it's just, it has to stop.
You said no penis is as big as a baby.
Big as a baby. Now, if you're dealing with young 18 version, but for any grown man dealing with a grown woman, please stop. That's irrelevant. The real thing with this body count thing, with this sex thing, is really all up here, and it really has to also do with discipline.
Okay.
And this goes back to the road less travel, because once again, I'll speak for men. It's like, if you are a guy that's getting it and you getting it often and getting it whatever the case may be, you can develop a sort of insatiable taste for sex. An unhealthy, insatiable taste for sex. And there is unhealthy, insatiable, and I'm going to use all of our celebrities as my social proof, right? How much sex do you have to have till you have to pee on somebody to get pleasure? This is a question. all of us watching the P Diddy or R Kelly or whoever you want to talk about, right?
Or
And
Chris Rock in his comedy, he talked about his addiction to porn
yeah,
and how it got out of hand.
yeah. For all of us who watch, it's like you never ask yourself like, how many women would I have to sleep with, or men for that matter? But this is the case for men. How many women would I have to sleep with where normal sex is no longer good enough for me? Right? Where I have to have, Magic Johnson said it didn't even feel right to have sex with less than two women at a time. How do you get to that point? It's because you've had so much of it that you develop an insatiable taste for something, right? Now, I'm using celebrities, but you can bring that all the way back down to us as individuals, because some of us, the longer you go without a relationship, I remember being in college, we used to have this, we had this program called Secrets in the Dark. And basically, it was like a college program, and we would essentially turn the lights or dim the lights, and we would have like these sex conversations. Thinking back, we were stupid. 22-year-olds leading sex conversations with 19-year-olds is probably not the best thing, right? But we would often get into this conversation about the 3-month rule or the 4-month rule or whichever month. But it was an idea like, how long does it, before you sleep with a person, it's like, well, 3 months, and once you start doing the math, you're like, wait a minute. But if you slept with a new person every 3 months, that's 4 people a year. You multiply that times 10, that's 40 people, right? 10 years is not a long time. That's just 20 to 30, right? And so we started just having these, questions and whatnot. And so you can essentially develop this taste, and it can be insatiable, and you're not even recognize it. You're not even understanding. So now you get in this relationship, right? You get in this relationship. Oh man, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that happens is, for men, right? We have different, for women, for men, it's sometimes, it ain't just, it's about frequency and, various things. Will you do this? Will you do that? Right? And then for women, it becomes about the passion, right? And both of these things become problematic within the relationship, and you see issues within people, and they're like, oh, we're not compatible. But sometimes it's really about looking at yourself and disciplining yourself and asking yourself, is what I'm asking for realistic?
With saying that, when it comes to the road less traveled, one of the key ideas from the book is growth through discipline and delaying gratification.
Yeah.
Says that healthy love prioritizes long-term happiness over short-term comfort, meaning sacrifices may be necessary. I think that what you're talking about is having self-discipline, and I think that people don't realize, in order to sustain a long-term happy relationship, you have to maintain, first of all, when you're in the dating process, you need to have it. It doesn't magically come when you say I do. Right? Part of your dating with intention is your self-discipline, but maintaining that also throughout the relationship. I think people have an idea that once you get together with your person, if it's the right person, you don't need to have any of those discipline or boundaries or any of that anymore. And that's not true. In order to sustain it over time, I was going to ask you that, but you hit on it, is you have to do some reflection and ask, are my expectations even realistic?
Yeah.
And I was thinking that when it comes to women, especially because you hear women more so talk about a type, asking yourself, is my expectation of what I'm looking for in this partner, is this even realistic? We didn't even hit on the, I feel like it's dying down a bit, but for a minute it was about, what you bring to the table and the finances, right? People talking about in dating, what was it? If a man asks you to go on a date and it was a list of things, and it was like, if he asked you to go on a coffee date, that's a broke man. And I was just flabbergasted at the list of things, and I was like, but how do you expect to get to know somebody on an everyday what life is like with them on an everyday basis. Do you think that married couples that have been together and still maintaining some happiness,
Yeah.
do you think we on a flight every day? Do
Right.
you think that, we're going to eat lobster and shrimp? Like, sometimes once you get married and you get into life and your career and children, we look forward to a morning without them and going to get coffee together. Right? That's what realistic life, everyday life would look like. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's important when you're talking about compatibility, looking for somebody who I could do this everyday life thing with.
Yeah. Peacefully. And
Yes.
as many people have said in like various podcasts and TikToks, but people say marriage is boring. It's not marriage is not boring. It's peaceful. And so many of us have happy
Amen to
marriages.
that.
Happy
Happy
marriages are
marriages.
peaceful. And so many of us have been used to chaos. I have been fortunate enough to not really be in relationships where people have bust out my windows and and you listen to these stories and people tell the story like, man, I can't believe she did this and
But it
blah, blah.
also, but it
But
also speaks to the type of man you've been. You've not. I have to stand up for the ladies. Now, what you're referring to is like a lot of us aren't. We don't act like that for no reason.
well, I'm not saying from the women's
Okay,
side or
I'm
men's
just
side either.
saying.
But what I'm saying is that people complain about those relationships, but they constantly find themselves in it because they're attracted to that drama. It's exciting. Right? That's what I'm saying. It's like
Okay.
the makeup to breakup, right? It's like, or the breakup to makeup, however you want to word it. It's, that's exciting, right? You see people, I mean, from crazy stories, it's like, and you listen and people talk about like it's common, like, this ain't never happened to you. It's like, oh, this ain't never, right? And I'm pretty sure there's other women who can say the same thing. It's like, that's all I'm saying. I think that we get really attracted to just drama.
Okay. All right.
But I'll leave it there.
Okay. We want to move on to the reality of love, sex, boundaries, and betrayal. We kind of hit on it.
Yeah, well, we can save that for
We
another
can say
time.
that for another time. That can kind of get a little deep. All right. What about sustaining love, growth, and transformation? All right. So I can go through some of the subjects here when it comes to growth and transformation. We have commitment and growth. The books that we reference for that are The Courage to Be Disliked, Overcoming Fear in Relationships, Attached. This book is about attachment styles and their impact on long-term love. Do we want to just start there with those two?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So going back to The Courage to Be Disliked. Again, this book is about overcoming fear in relationships, and it explores how individuals often fear rejection and judgment in relationships, but it leads them to suppress their true desires and emotions.
Yeah. So,
Let me add though, it says that it's based on Adlerian psychology. Okay, so he applies Adlerian psychology to relationships and says that he's arguing that true happiness and connection come from embracing self-acceptance and personal freedom rather than seeking validation. This approach encourages partners to cultivate an authentic bond where love is given freely without the burden of needing approval. Ooh, that's heavy.
yeah, it is. So that
Adlerian.
Adlerian.
Yes.
Y'all gonna think I'm lying because I can't pronounce it. Adlerian psychology is actually my jam. I got a book, Poison Soil, talks about the inferiority complex, which is one of the major themes within that type of psychology or that person. And I think tying the courage to be disliked with attached. How we are raised, how we grow up, the ideas that we have create our type. So in the book Attached, they talk about how many times our memories and experience, traumatic or not, shape how we connect with people. And you may not realize it, but the reason why you may be in toxic relationships all the time is because you may have some sort of attachment with toxic relationship. Maybe you had a mother, a father, some siblings, something in your family, and they created. It's kind of like
Let's
codependency. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to be specific, the book categorizes attachment styles into secure, anxious, and avoidant, explaining that these patterns influence relationship dynamics. So what you're talking about, sometimes we don't pick up on the person, but if you understand like the secure, the anxious, and the avoidant, situations that you were repeatedly put in as a child, that and you witnessed between the
Yes.
adults in your life and how they handled stress, right? That now has formed how you attach to people, your
Right.
meaning, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Or the value you give to people or things.
The value you give to people or things, and then it's attached to your happiness. So this goes back to the filling your cup thing. It's like because you're trying to get that person to validate you, right? Through whatever attachment style that you may have. It's the validation part of it, right? We if you haven't looked into those attachment theories, look into them. Just look into them. See if you fall into any of those categories. And
Let me mention the author. So the book Attached is by Amir Levine, or Levine, and Rachel Heller.
okay, yeah, look into those, and just examine your own attachment style and attachment in general, because, like I said, I think that a lot of us are. We establish these relationships from how we grew up. You know what I'm saying? And so because of that, our type a lot of time is based on that. And this is why, going back to the point, sometimes you have to examine what your type is
And what it's coming
and
from.
what it's coming from, because it may not be healthy for you. Even if you're like, well, I just like, you know what I'm saying, girls or guys, examine that. Is it healthy for you though? Because it might not be. It might not be healthy at all. And so you need to essentially take that deep look within yourself to kind of figure that out, right?
But I think that goes back to what I was saying about the very first question, where what did we ask? Are you looking for the right person, or is it about finding the right person or becoming the right person? That goes back to what I said about when you start becoming the right person, right? You're doing those deep dive looks into yourself, going through learning about your attachment. And even with friendships, we're talking about romantic, but it might have you reevaluate. Your
Yeah.
attachment style will have you reevaluating even your friendships. You might find yourself in some toxic, friendships with people. You might be reevaluating that, but essentially becoming the right person. And once you start really healing and dealing and changing from within, then that right person changes to you.
Yeah.
You'll find yourself where, and I know people have experienced, I know women definitely have experienced this, where your 30 or 40-year-old self looks back at what you were attracted to in your 20s and you think, I could never. At this point in my life, if I was, or if I knew what I know now, the maturity, the love, the processing of my early 20s, I would never
Yeah.
have even entertained some people. So I think that that's definitely important, and goes back to, you got to become the right person.
In that book, The Courage to Be Disliked, I think they talk a lot about. It's an interesting book, because really what the book is about, it's not about being disliked. It's about addressing your fear of being disliked so that you can live and be your authentic self. And this goes back into finance. And we've talked a lot about picking the wrong partner, but let's scale it back for people who are not in those situations. Maybe you're not in a situation where you are with a toxic partner or something like that, but you're just like, I'm just not happy. I'm just not happy in this relationship. And so they had made a comment after they got a divorce, like, man, after you haven't been with somebody for a while, you start realizing the things that you like. They was like, I forget what dish it was, but it was some type of dish. They was like, they ate like every week. And now that they're not married, they're like, I don't even like that dish. And I remember thinking like, you were married to that person for like 10 years. Y'all ate this every week and you didn't like it? And now that you're divorced, you're like, I don't even like this. Why did you eat it every single week? You ate it because that person liked it. And we may think we're doing something noble, but we're not living our authentic selves, which ultimately led to unhappiness.
And that right there, it was the aha for both of us with the road less traveled.
Yeah.
Actually, it was, and we've read a lot of books, but it was the road less traveled that I think our relationship started to take a turn in understanding that you need to live your best life and I need to live my best life. I need room to grow. You need room to grow.
Right.
You need room to express yourself and grow into who you are, and I need the same. Can we, as two mature adults, agree to do that together and to give each other the space to do that? But also, again, because discipline and boundaries need to be maintained, can we also come together and make sure that we are still respecting of boundaries and making sure that my growth doesn't ultimately cause harm or hindrance to the overall health of our relationship, right? I have to have some self-discipline with that. But we became friends with each other. We really valued, I have to find happiness from within. I have to fulfill, my life's purpose, and you the same. And so I think that with that book, understanding love in that way, like two consenting adults who are living life to their fullest, and they're doing it intentionally and consciously together. Does that make sense?
Yes. Makes sense.
And I think going back to what you're saying about the courage to be disliked is a lot of times that lack of fulfillment, and we're looking for the partner to do it. That lack of fulfillment comes from the fact that you may not be living to your life's purpose or your life's potential, or really expressing and doing because and not being true to you, right? And so I think that that's where a lot of times resentment comes into play. And a lot of times relationships, as it goes on, you find yourself resenting your partner and now channeling those emotions outward. But that's where reflection comes in and say, the only person I really should be mad at is me. Me. I've been living a shell of myself. I haven't been really living to my full. And so how can I, and I've never expressed to my partner that, you know what, I don't think I like eating that. Can we try something else? But I'm resentful for you because you cooked that.
Right. Exactly.
But I've never been true to, I don't even like that. And ask you, do you like that? Or have we just been accustomed to doing this thing together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's true. And I think that's it. The courage to be disliked talks about a lot of stuff. But as far as relationships, that's where that lands. It's like you have to have that courage to say, hey, I don't like this. Hey, this is who I am. Because that's how you gain a deeper connection and become closer to each other. Because let's be honest, like most of us are, it's that whole age-old, we introduce people to a representative of ourselves, right? We want people to see our best selves. And a lot of times our best selves is contingent on the person we're talking to. Because we want to fit in to that environment. You can call it code switching. We don't just code switch at work. We code switch amongst friends. We code switch amongst different circles, right? I'm a part of various different circles. Depending on what circle I'm in, it has nothing to do with work. I may talk differently. I may dress differently. I may walk differently because, a lot of times we seek to fit in. And the courage to be disliked is like, hey, sometimes it's necessary, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you have to win in Rome. But sometimes, especially in your relationships, your personal relationships with friends, family, and your partner, you have to be authentically yourself.
Right. Okay. Next in this subject was communication and respect. So there's a book love and respect, why understanding your partner's core need is key. This is Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. And then there was, the 5 love languages again. But the love and respect says that Dr. Eggerichs argues that men primarily seek respect while women seek love. And when these fundamental needs are met, relationships thrive. He explains that many conflicts arise when partners fail to recognize and provide what the other truly needs. When a husband feels disrespected, he may withdraw, causing his wife to feel unloved and vice versa, creating what Eggerichs calls the crazy cycle. Learning to break this cycle by intentionally showing love or respect can transform the dynamic of a relationship.
Okay. I think this goes into the masculinity and the femininity understanding. And the best way I've heard this explained outside of this book, the best way I've heard this explained is the rules amongst men is respect, but the rules amongst women is love. And men operate like that with each other among ourselves. Respect is more important than everything else when it comes to men. Wars are fought over respect, right? And when you're younger and immature, you see people sometimes hurt, harm, violence happens. Respect. From a young age, you understand, like, it's respect. That's how men operate. And it's not to say that women don't want respect. We're not saying that. But women don't look for that even within their friend circles. So even within our friend circles, there's an understanding of respect amongst men. We don't cross certain lines, right? And this sometimes misses women, right? It misses women, especially in relationships. And I remember us having this conversation. A perfect example of this is when men deal with each other, there's always a threat of violence.
Okay.
And I think that it's a TikToker, his name is John. He talks about this. When men deal with each other, there's a unspoken, but there's always a threat of violence among men. And so men deal with each other differently. I'm not going to say certain things to you unless I'm ready to fight or more. So because of that, men deal with each other differently. Women don't have that same threat level. So a lot of times you see women, they have the reputation of being the most disrespectful, right? If you want to talk about, hurting somebody, you don't verbally, we know that women hold that. Even the Bible talks about that.
The Bible talks about the woman's
the woman
tongue.
and the tongue, right? And it's because there's no limit. With men, even with my worst enemy, there's always a limit unless I'm willing to go to that other limit. Right? It's like this one of those animal documentaries I seen where this tiger and an alligator met at the river, right? And the tiger got there and the alligator got there and they both looked at each other and they kind of looked and they kind of moved a little bit and then both of them just walked off. And then the commentator over the thing was like, it's not worth it today. Because both of them sized each other up.
And it's this is going to be a real fight.
This going to be a real fight. You know what? This not worth it today. The alligator turned around, the tiger turned around. Right? That's how men, we two dangerous people. That's how men interact with each other. Even if don't matter big, small, we interact like this dude is dangerous. If I'm going to go there, I have to be willing to go there. Women, I don't think that thought is there. So it goes right in, right? This is the dynamic that happens in marriages and relationships, where men and women get into an argument or disagreement. Men are constantly thinking about good men, respect, right? It's I'm not going to say that to my wife because that'd be disrespectful. I'm not going to say it to my girlfriend. I'm not going to say it in that way. I'm not going to say it, right? But women don't have that same filter, and so men interpret it. This is a lack of respect. Because if anybody else would have said this to me, we would be fist fighting. Right? And that's what happens. And unfortunately, a lot of times, I don't go there, but I think that that's where that respect comes in. And to the reverse of that, it don't mean that men don't want to be loved, but love is kind of secondary to us. Respect is first, secondary. Love is secondary. And so, to the reverse of that, we have a difficult time giving love. Not that we have a difficult time giving it, but it's the intentionality of it. The intentionality. Because love, what we've been saying, is intentional.
And this is why you will find a lot of times men, whether they be the macho man or even if it's not the macho man, that the traditional man, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes is very focused on the respect thing for a man is, are you providing for your family, right? I go to work, I provide. It's kind of like the movie with Denzel Washington and
Fences.
Yes,
Yeah.
Fences, and where the son was saying something about, do you like me or love me? And
do you like me?
do you love me? And he was like, it was never my job to love. What do you mean? Do I feed you? Do I clothe you? Do I put food on the table? That's that respect, right? As a respectable man does those things. But what about the love part? You know? Interesting that you said that before you have talked about, you know, we have 3 daughters and we have 1 son, and our youngest is the son. And just him being a young boy, right, and having a mother in the home with him and a father, and what life will be like for him growing up and leaving out of the house, something that you have said to me that I didn't realize until him, Jasim, is that the love that he's getting from me and you right now, the nurturing, the love, that is not something that once he becomes a man, he will get from the world.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because I never thought of it in that way. And I think it's important for women when you are in a relationship with a man that you care about to understand that once they are no longer boys and they grow up to be men, like you said, how men treat each other and handle each other, that's not about love. It's about respect. The world is not giving love to men once they make that transition. And it even starts in the teenage years, right? And I think it's important to understand when you're in a relationship with a man, respect is how they interpret love, right? Like with my son now, right? I'm loving him. I'm not coddling, because I don't believe in coddling, but very nurturing to him. And I think about eventually once he grows up, he's not going to get that from any place else. So how important is it that when he comes into his home, that is present there for him? I think that we, a lot of times as women, don't understand that love for us is respect for him. And that a lot of times, no matter all the things that I'm doing that I think are showing love, kind of like the man in Fences where he was like, I feed you, I clothe you. Women, we do that too. All the things, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I take care of the kids, all of the things that I'm doing, right? I'm even working. I'm go half on the bills or whatever, right? It misses us, though, that none of that matters if when I open my mouth, I have no respect for that man. I can't love him if I'm not respecting him. Does that make sense? I think we miss that. I think we do miss that. That as women, we grow up being loved and nurtured, and we give it to each other, right? And the expectation for a man to love us. So we get flowers, we get the kindness, we get that. Men don't get that. The only person you get that from is your mama. Right? And if you got that from her. Right? So I think that it's important for women. I think we miss the respect thing because we don't. It's kind of going back to the love languages. You have to get outside of yourself and think about, if I'm going to choose to do this life thing with you, what do you need from me, right? My brain is not wired for the respect thing, but your brain is wired for that. And what am I saying and doing daily, right? Especially when it comes in the midst of when the honeymoon phase is over, right? We're talking about sustaining long-term relationship. That mouth can get real slick real quick when you get comfortable with somebody. You're on your best behavior when you're new in it. But you get what I'm saying? But as time goes on, something that I just hurts my soul when I witness people in relationships that have no filter, no boundary to the low that they will go.
Yes.
And the thing that I've always questioned is, how do you lay down with that person after you have just verbally just dogged them?
But that goes back to how you was raised. Because a lot of us grew up with people in our house, mother, father, uncle, auntie, who talk like that. We talk about that all the time. Even not just in relationships, but even within family structures, it's like, how do you just forget about what that person said at Thanksgiving, right? How do you just forget, family or not? There's certain things you can say to me that I'm probably not going to talk to you again, right? But it's people who are like, what? What you mean? What's the problem? I mean, you still mad at that? You still upset? You need to get over that. It's like, get over it. What do you mean?
Right.
Because they're used to being in relationships where there is no boundary. It's like they have the idea like when we are fighting, it's a fight and there are no rules. And it's like,
But you can't sustain happiness with that.
right, correct.
And that's why we say long-term happy relationships, fulfilling relationships. You can't sustain that if you don't have boundaries when it comes to your tongue.
Yeah.
And I just think as women, when you talk about masculinity and femininity, the yin and the yang, you have to, as a woman, have to learn and better understand what is femininity, and then how is it best in complement masculinity, and vice versa. What is true masculinity and how does it complement femininity? And that's something that has to be worked on, because when you first get together and the honeymoon is over, next thing you know, it's conflict. We have to learn that. Right? Grow into my femininity, and how does it best complement your masculinity, and them not be competing with each other.
Yeah.
I think that's the flaw of feminism, to be honest with you. I'm probably anti-feminism and I'm pro-femininity.
Yes.
And the reason why I say that is because I think that the idea of feminism is flawed because it's doing the opposite of what it's saying it's doing. I think the idea came from, trying to right the wrong of the wrongs that women have been experiencing. But the flaw in it is, in order to be equal to a man, I have to be a man. And for me, that's a flawed idea, because I'm not a man. I'm pro-femininity because with that idea, masculinity and femininity are equal. They're different. They work together, but they're equal. I don't have to be a man or do manly things to be equal to you. Me and my feminine role is equal to you. And if we respect each other as equal, then that's where love and growth comes. But I think a lot of times why this conflict happens is because historically men have judged femininity to be weaker than them. And when human beings in history, when you believe that a group is weaker or less than, mistreatment comes. And women are fighting for, just like any group of people, fighting for freedom, right? Women are now fighting for their freedom to get out underneath that oppressive idea. And then now we're still in balance, fighting one another. And I think getting back to the root of, we were made to coexist and complement each other. Respecting your masculinity.
Yeah.
And you respecting or loving my femininity. And understanding that so it's not competing.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're good for today. We've been talking for quite some time.
I think we can go over our final thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Key takeaways from today. Shoot, real quick.
Key takeaways is be intentional about dating. Assess yourself. What do you want in life? What do you want in a partner? And as you're going out and dating, choose people with those same type of core principles. And if you find that you are not attracted to the people that match the core principles, then reassess again to figure out if you have an attachment style that is leading you toward less than desirable relationships. Look into yourself. Ask yourself, are you being your authentic self? You can't ask somebody to love you if you don't love yourself. Being your authentic self is the first step to loving yourself. Being your authentic self is the first step to finding someone. This is why a lot of people say, date yourself. Marry yourself. Love yourself. And that is, to my opinion, some of the first steps to finding that person.
The right person.
That right person.
I just want to encourage our viewers to explore relationships with an open mind. And then comment your thoughts. Comment your thoughts on compatibility and what's been the biggest relationship lesson that you've learned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that being said, watch our other YouTube videos. Check us out on TikTok. We are Traditionally Untraditional on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, across all of your platforms. We, not just with videos, but we try to post insightful information to help you find, maintain, and sustain love. That's kind of our goal here. Realistic, we didn't even introduce ourselves.
Welcome to Traditionally Untraditional, where we break down marriages, relationship, and... Oh, shoot. Let me do it again.
And we got 14 years of marriage experience. I know we look like we are 20.
Oh, gosh. Let me say that again. Welcome to Traditionally Untraditional, the podcast where we break down relationships, marriage, and the real challenges that people face.
The real challenges. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.